probably come from a broken family or are lost in life. I'm going to tell you about the transformation that took me from a broken, lost young man to the version of me who was consistent, disciplined, striving towards his goals, has the love of his father, God, and of the woman of his dreams. The woman that's going to help me build the family that I never had. My parents got divorced when I was 8. And I always sat with me. I was always that kid who didn't have a father. Although I did visit him, something was always missing. That father love. That led me into degeneracy. That led me into a porn addiction. That led me to always lack something. I could have good moments in life. I could have the best moments in life, but I would always lack that father. At night when things would go bad, as naturally things go bad in life, I would sit in my room and I would think about the fact that I didn't have a dad, that something was missing in me. And of course, at that age, I didn't know what it was. Only looking back, I can firmly say that divorce affects how you love other people, how you view yourself. Because we often, as kids who come from a divorced family, think it is our fault. We lack the love of our father, of our mother, or both because of us. Subconsciously, some way, it was our fault. I'll tell you a story that relates to all of this. I remember one time I was young, 8 maybe, and I was sleeping in my room. It was a winter night. I hear a loud bang. My room flies open. My mother runs in screaming and hides behind me. Why? She was trying to avoid my father. That is where I came from. But I tell you now today that more than ever, I love my dad. I've forgiven him, and we are best friends. So how could I go from a father in a household that made me feel anxious, that played into my anxious attachment style, to loving my dad, spending countless days with him, not wanting to stop spending time with him despite living in 2 different households still? Hell. Well, in short words, the love of God. And that's what we're going to be explaining through this whole guide. If you don't know what anxious attachment style is, I'm going to give you a brief introduction on what anxious attachment style is, how it plays into future relationships, and how you're more likely to get divorced because of your background. Anxious attachment style can be summed up in a few sentences. You get really nervous, you get really anxious when things go wrong. I'll give you the story of yesterday. Yesterday, me and the woman of my dreams got into an argument. My past was brought up, and most people would get nervous, right? But I was really, really nervous. Thoughts were running in my head, and this is after years of healing myself. Thoughts would run in my head of like, oh, is she going to leave me? Oh, I shouldn't tell her this because she might leave me. Oh, like that primal instinct came back. And if you come from a broken household, you more than likely have an anxious attachment style. And if you have an anxious attachment style, it's really hard to love properly. If you come from a broken family as well, you're 38% more likely to get a divorce. If 2 people come from a divorced household, you're 2 times more likely than the already 50% divorce rate to get a divorce. Which is sad. Because we come from broken households. We know the effects of it. And we do everything we can not to have that again, not to do the same to our children. But the reality is, we often don't work on how to love, on how to date, on our attachment styles. We do everything I can in our mind of, okay, I'm not going to be like my dad. I'm not going to be like my mom. I'm not going to raise my kids in 2 different households where they're packing a bag every weekend. We say that in here. But oftentimes, it's a lack of knowledge that stops us from actually taking action. What do? We want to do something, but what do? How do we fix the broken household that we came from? How do we make sure that never happens to us ever again. It starts with learning how to love, date, and lead. And especially if you're a young man, that is your duty. If you come from a broken household, you and me both do. If you do come from it, it is your duty to learn how to date, love, and lead, because we don't want to create the same household we grew up in. Anxious attachment. It led me to the wrong relationship. It led me to get attached to the wrong people for wrong reasons. It led me to seek relationships based on a feeling, based on that instant feeling that a girl will give me. And you and me both have had it, where a girl is obsessed with us, where she likes us, and it feels good. But what feels better? Building with a woman who's not attached to you just based on the fact that you might leave, anxious attachment, or building with a woman who loves you for you, who isn't afraid. Now, when we come from a broken household, we often are lost. Take away the good moments in life. Take all those out and only look at the bad moments. In our bad moments, what do we think? What are we thinking of? Is it the stresses of homework? No. We're thinking about our abandonment. We have that, our heart pumping, our anxiety. We have shallow breath because we still have trauma. I feel very blessed from God because in my times of hurt, I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, despite being far away from Him. He led me to journaling. He led me to journaling about my purpose, journaling day and night. I have journals from 2018. 8 years ago, I started journaling about my purpose, about my mission, about what I want to do, why me. I stayed up at night, ashamed of myself, ashamed of who I was. I knew as much pain as you might be in, you're not as broken as you think. You don't have to be a victim. Life doesn't have to happen to you. Everything happens for a reason. And if we can find the love of God, we can use God's love to understand why we went through what we went through. For me, I always wondered, why did I see abuse? Why did I see my mom hiding behind me? Why? Instead of blaming God, I started understanding that now I can use this to help the younger version of me go through it. I can teach the younger version of me what it means to come from. This next section is going to tell you how to find direction coming from a broken household. The reason why I got so close to God, the reason why I'm filled with joy, filled with happiness, filled with fulfillment, is because I wanted a secure family. I always envisioned this family that would give me constant love that I could build. I always dream about being the best father I can, the father I never had. I love my dad so much. And I'm so glad I know him. So when I say, the father I never had, I'm talking about the father that he was 10 years ago, not the father that he is now. But just a quick disclaimer, because I do love my dad so much now. I see him as a best friend. One of the most pivotal moments of my life was forgiving my father. As I mentioned before, I saw domestic abuse in my household. I had an absent father, and that was partly due to the fact that it was a scary environment, but also partly due to the fact that I didn't want to see him because I didn't forgive him. My life changed when I forgave my father. I remember seeing this image which relates to the story I'm about to tell. I remember seeing a snake walking down a road, slithering down a road, and he went over a saw, like a handsaw, and the saw cut him. And instead of the snake just walking by, the snake wrapped itself around the saw, and little by little, as the snake wrapped itself around, the saw just continuously dug into the snake until the snake bled out and died. In that moment, I realized that I was the snake, that I was the one holding on to that pain, and it was only hurting me. The following day, I go to adoration with my uncle. Another moment in my life that brought me to the dream relationship of my life that made me whole was when I hurt people around me, an ex-girlfriend, my best friend, my mother, another ex-girlfriend. When I hurt these people and I finally took accountability for my life, for the first time in my life, of every single action I've done to hurt them, and they forgave me, I felt God's love through them. And I finally knew that that was the moment I had to dedicate myself to God, because I felt His love, because I felt overwhelmed with His love. Nothing stuck up until that. None of my relationships were solid. None of my entrepreneurial ventures were solid. I was all over the place. Sure, I was a smart kid, but I was all over the place because I didn't have the love of God, because I still held on to the traumas of the past that were only affecting me. And until I forgave my father and apologized to those around me, it wasn't until I did those moments where I felt God's love and fully dedicated myself to God. That was a year ago. A year ago, I was a degenerate. I was smoking. I was having casual sex. I was drinking. I was lusting. Now I'm helping young men in the Catholic Church learn how to lead, date, and love. I'm helping them with lust. I'm helping them with all the addictions, all the shortcomings, all the times where I spat on God with my habits. I'm helping the younger version of me with those habits. I have the woman of my dreams by my side, the woman that I've been journaling about since 15. That same woman that you think of when you think of a future family. I finally built that through the grace and love of God. And it only took me 1 year. My message to you is never lose the desire to love. Never lose that North Star and that vision of that future family that you never had. Never lose that desire to become someone great. Never lose that desire to be the father or mother or be the parents you never had. To create the family you never had. Never lose the desire for a family. Never lose the desire to love, because it is possible. Let it be God's will and not mine.